Namaskar, welcome to our special show, Our Constitution. As you know, it was adopted on 26 November 1949 and enforced on 26 January 1950. So it has completed 70 years. It is considered a unique document throughout the world. It has survived for 70 years and it is sure to survive more. While other constitution could not survive in a few years or a few decades, this constitution has weathered or seen rough weathers and still it has survived. But what is unique about it, that it is a complete departure from the past feudal society. It is a complete war against whatever was existing, and it enters a new age where everyone has been given complete freedom, equality, freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of belief. So from a feudal society to a society which is based on the principle of equality and justice for all, justice social, economic and political, and that is the strength of the constitution. The constitution makers believed in the wisdom of the common people and gave all rights to them. So we have a very distinguished panel to discuss the historical background and also the salient features of this constitution. Participants are Justice B.P. Singh, a former judge of the Supreme Court, Mr. Subhas Kashyap, a former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, and Dr. A. Surya Prakash, a renowned journalist and Chairman Prasar Bharati. So first of all, Dr. Surya Prakash, I would like to know from you, as I said, that it is a unique document and that is internationally accepted because no country had this kind of debate for the constitution making. It has been accepted worldwide. And it is also a complete departure from the past. So what, in your opinion, are the salient features which make it different from other constitutions?
First of all, when finally the constitution was drafted, there was a lot of debate on what it eventually amounted to, and there were people who said it was a cut and paste job, something from Ireland, something from Australia, something from the US and so on, all put together, and the Government of India Act 1935. But having looked at the constitution and having grown up in independent, free India, let me tell you that it's a remarkable document which has taken into account the social and economic conditions that prevailed in the country at that time and that would prevail in the country over the decades after the constitution was made. It takes into account all that, and it is a document that has, in a sense, looked at the future when you look at the circumstances that have prevailed in the country over these 7 decades. The other thing is that the unity, integrity of India, the social cohesiveness that prevails after 70 years, all the massive political debates that have happened, that it has been able to absorb all that. And I am of the view that it's a document which has provided enough vents for all shades of opinion. And that is how it has ensured the integration of India and the march of India in political terms, in terms of our democracy. We are the most diverse nation in the world, and I think we are the most vibrant democracy in the world, and we are proud of both these aspects, and we have kept this going because of the Constitution of India. So I am one of those who believe that all those criticisms about the Constitution and all that nitpicking as to its content and so on, I am not one who will go along with that.
Justice B.P. Singh, as Dr. Surya Prakash was saying, that some people say it is a cut and paste job, because we also read that B. Narasimha Rao went to different countries, confabulated with jurists like Justice Frankfurter and others in different countries, and then borrowed certain ideas, and Dr. Rajendra Prasad said, though, no, we have filtered. It's not that simply cut and paste, because people say from Britain we took the parliamentary system, bicameral legislature, from USA we took the post of president as head of the state, Supreme Court, and from Ireland they are directive principles. So different things from different posts, and basically it is said that from 1935 Act we have taken most of the things. And so when that act was being debated in the House of Commons, reference was made to Canada because that was a federal country, and we are also not only federal but so much of diversity. So references were made, copious references to British North America Act 1867. How do you evaluate this comment that it is cut and paste, or how indigenous it is, because India had a long tradition of democracy since the days of Lichavi or Vaishali?
Well, so far as democracy is concerned, maybe that in the past, go back to our old history, ancient history of India. Yes, there were 16 republics, as you know, in the UP and Bihar and Madhya Pradesh region. They had practiced the direct democratic institutions were there. But that was all gone for some time. And later came the Muslim rule, then the Mughals came, and the East India Company came. And I think we can only have a useful discussion after the East India Company was gone and the Queen Victoria proclaimed in 1858. Thereafter, the first, not a constitution, but the first enactment or reforms was brought about by Minto-Morley, what is known as Minto-Morley reforms in 1909. And of course, they had provision for different type of electorates, reservations for certain religious people from particular religious faith. And that was followed by what was known as the diarchical system under the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. That
1919.
1919.
Yes.
Diarchy was in vogue. General subjects and reserved subjects. Reserved subjects were all governed by Britishers themselves.
And that's why people of India are so much dissatisfied that every law made by the legislature had to be got confirmed by the governor as well as governor general. So there was a lot of dissatisfaction, resentment against that.
No, what I'm emphasizing is the fact that we are gradually moving towards a democratic form of government. Gradually, but it was very gradual. And then came later on the Nehru report came. There are other revolutionaries. They all wanted. Bal Gangadhar Tilak said, we want complete freedom. And when he wanted complete freedom, he was revolting against the existing system. And the existing system was not democratic in the sense we understood it. We have selected what suited our conditions best. And in that sense, we have evolved a very unique type of system, unique type of constitution. Now, for instance, if you discuss, when you talk about federalism, what is federalism? There is no definition of federalism. But there is an example, and it's always, what is quoted is the American pattern. We are not federal in that respect, and historically also, we are not similarly placed as the American constitution makers were placed. They had independent states which formed a confederation, and then after the confederation, they formed a...
No, we are different in the sense that they have a federal system where they have their own Supreme Court in every state, and then there is complete separation of power. We don't have that type of separation of powers in India because executive and legislature merge at different points. So there is a lot of difference.
Emphasis there was on the independence of the states, and what was left to the union. Here, that is not the criterion that we have followed. We have gone subject-wise. Therefore, our division of legislative and executive power is based on functions, not on this state or that state or the states generally and the center as a separate unit. Therefore, I don't think that there is anything wrong with it. If we have found good things in a particular constitution or in another system, what is wrong if we copy it? There is nothing wrong with that. Cut and paste, I don't think that term is very apt, because to assimilate those thoughts in one constitution and make it a cohesive whole is itself a great achievement. So my own feeling is that...
it was a very challenging job, because a country with so much of ethnicities, religions, languages, you are making constitution that satisfies everyone. And so you are trying to pick and choose, you are trying to take the gems from wherever it is possible and leaving out the dross.
In fact, on November 4, 1948, when this criticism was levied, Dr. Ambedkar said, it's over 100 years since we had the first written constitution, and many constitutions have been written after that. Show me one constitution which is 100% original.
It can't be, because we learn from the experience of others. And we'll be very foolish if we don't learn.
It is the largest constitution, though some, I don't know who commented but said that it is a lawyer's paradise. It is a very popular saying. I don't know who said it, but it is said about the constitution. Mr. Suhas Kashyap, as Justice Singh was talking about the history from the 1919 Act or 1909 Act, I think even before that, going back to the 1773 Regulating Act, because that was the first attempt at making the constitution, first constitutional essay in the history of, I think, India, in modern India. And then we have so many other acts. Finally, in 1858, after the first war of independence, when the entire power was shifted to the crown. So I think these are two major stages. In 1833, I find that for the first time act was used. Earlier it was regulation, and then the government started using act, the word act. So that was also a major point, milestone in the history of constitution making. How do you react?
Well, the fact is that every constitution has a long history which begins much before the constitution making body is set up. It was especially true about Indian constitution. Constitution of India was in the making throughout the period of the nationalist struggle for freedom and the grudging reforms conceded in small doses by the British authorities. There was an interaction between the demands of the freedom fighters and the concessions that the British government, the colonial government, was willing to give. The Constitution of India was growing through this interaction. And the Constituent Assembly used the Government of India Act 1935 as the working draft, and that explains also the large size of the Constitution of India. The two things that I would like to say about the Constitution of India: one, that it has great survival potential. All the constitutions, almost all the constitutions that were made after the Second World War, either were abrogated or substituted by new constitutions, or military rule or dictatorship and things of that kind. It is India's constitution which has survived, and there are many achievements under the constitution. Even natural calamities, man-made calamities, all were met within the four corners of the constitution. So that it has survived, and as you say, in a country like India, which is said to be full of diversity. Personally, I believe that we lay too much emphasis on diversity. Unity in diversity is cited, but we forget unity, and we emphasize and in fact go to even celebrate diversity, which I believe is not correct, because the ideal is unity, and the concept of Indian unity, even though not as a nation state, as a nation state, even in Europe, the concept is very new, hardly 300 years old. But the concept of India as an identity, as a unit, goes back to 10,000 years. We were conscious of our being one people, one
nation.
Civilization.
No, you are very extremely right, because in the Vedas also I have found the word Rashtra at several places. That has come.
Yes.
And there is also one very strong concept of being one nation, because there is a concept of 7 rivers, Sapt Nadiyan, because that encompasses the whole country. And Mr. Kashyap, what you are talking about, the longevity of the
one more
Constitution,
thing,
I am reminded.
if I might complete,
Yes.
One more thing I would say, that the Constitution of India, I said survival potential, but the second greatest thing about the Constitution of India is that it is the greatest national integrational force. It has kept the unity and integrity of India supreme, and even those who are opposed to the mainstream. Even the terrorists seek protection under this constitution.
Yeah, so we
So
should salute
everybody,
this constitution. That is that.
everybody accepts the constitution. I think nothing more
It is a
can be
glowing
said
tribute
about
to the constitution makers who gave such a fine document.
yes.
But that reminds me of one incident, because after the constitution is enforced, the renowned British political scientist Ivor Jennings came to India, and he gave a series of lectures, and he was denouncing the constitution. This is lacking it, this is lacking, this is lacking in it. And
There was a, if I might so, there was a personal factor involved.
Yes.
Jennings very much wanted to be invited
as a
to help in the making of the constitution. And since
he was
since
not
that
invited,
not-
so he was
so he was
so
unhappy
vitriolic, so
Yeah.
that we
vitriolic.
made a constitution without him.
But what is more important, that then Sri Lanka drafted him to make the constitution, and what constitution he drafted was abrogated in 6 years. Our constitution has survived for 70 years, and it will survive. There is no question mark on its survival. But he could pick out, but rather he was so captious and peevish, only finding faults, and the constitution he made could not survive.
The antidote to that is Granville Austin,
Yes, Granville Austin.
who
yes.
in 1959 wrote the Constitution, a cornerstone of a nation.
Oh, gee, yes.
Both he and Morris Jones, Parliament in India, these were two scholars who came to see how we work our constitution and how we work our parliament. Both were very skeptical, but at the end of the exercise, I think they had a lot of good things to say.
And I think our constitution has passed the test.
Yeah, it has.
Because if you remember, Hitler rose to be a dictator.
Yeah.
Under the constitution, if you read the text of the constitution, it's the most democratic
Weimar Republic.
document.
Yes.
Weimar Republic.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
And but it didn't succeed. Our constitution, no matter how many amendments we have made, it has succeeded.
Yeah, that is true.
And that's why it also reflects on the Indian polity. Because you remember that oft-quoted sentence of Rajendra Babu, when after the constitution was signed and he talked to Jawaharlal Nehru, and he said, we have given to our people a good constitution, a very good constitution. Let us see what people make of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Therefore,
And
how it-
Ambedkar also said that
No,
if it
Doc-
does not work, it doesn't
No,
mean
no,
that
no,
the
I'll tell
constitution
you.
is bad, but the politicians
This is
are right.
Dr. Ambedkar's.
These are the words of
these are,
Dr. Ambedkar.
This is Dr. Ambedkar's quote.
Yes.
If things go wrong, it will not be that we had a bad constitution. What we will have to say is that man is wild.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, that is off quote.
This he said when presenting the draft.
Draft.
You know, 1 year later, they all completed the exercise. But even at the beginning, he was signaling that the whole effort is to produce a document that would understand India's innate strengths and be compatible with our social, economic and political reality.
Correct.
And that is what was eventually achieved, I think. If you look back over the last 70 years, that's why I said it provides enough vents. And the Mandal Commission said just the other backward classes are 3,500 castes. So probably there are 6,000 castes in the Hindu Samaj itself, and its impact on Islam and Christianity in India, and cultural diversity, linguistic diversity, 120 languages and 170 dialects. It
And
is
if
a phenomenal effort that they put in, I think, at that time.
And the number of languages that Grierson could find in the linguistic survey, more than 3,000 languages.
Yeah.
But one thing I would like to point out here, the immense confidence of the constitution makers in the wisdom of common man. No educational qualification, nothing, yet they had such a tremendous faith in their wisdom. They gave all rights, voting rights, which are denied to people in different countries, advanced countries, for centuries, and in one stroke they gave, because they believed that our people may not be literate, but they are quite wise, and they will take a very correct decision when given a chance. How would you like to comment on this?
Of course, because you see, if I'm not mistaken, it was only in the year 1908 that England gave voting rights to women.
Correct. Or 1928.
1923.
1928.
23, I think.
maybe that.
Maybe anyway, it's around that.
That's not
As late as that.
Yeah,
As late as that.
yes,
That is the world's greatest democracy that we talk.
correct.
So our foresight or the faith that our constitutional framers had in the people of this country is tremendous.
Yeah, that's,
And we believed that as a nation, we will get over all these problems. The only thing was how to get over it. And the Constitution showed us the way.
yeah, very true.
Kashyap Sahab, would like to have your comments.
On the 2 concluding days of the work of the Constitutional Assembly, both Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Dr. Ambedkar said something similar. He said the Constitution requires men to operate it. If the men who are called upon to operate it are men of character and integrity and competence, even if the Constitution has flaws, it will work very well. If they lack in these qualities, no Constitution can help. And both in different words but similar vein spoke. Because after all, it is men who work the Constitution, and the Constitution gets meaning only from the way it is worked. When we say the Constitution of India, the image that comes to mind is that of the text of the Constitution, the book which contains the provisions. But Constitution is not an inert document. It is not the name of a book. Constitution is a dynamic process. It's a dynamic process. Constitution is always in the making. As I said earlier, it was in making before the Constituent Assembly was set up, and it has been in making even after 26 January 1950.
Yes.
It has been in making through the amendments.
Yes,
it
that's
has
why
been
this
making
power was given.
through the legislation that have been passed under it, rules that have been passed under those legislation, interpretations given by the Supreme Court, and actual working by the administration. Even the man on the street, the constable, he is working under the Constitution. And the people, for the people, the Constitution is as it comes to him. And
Constable as well as the President of India, everyone is under the Constitution.
that's right. Everybody, and everyone is a citizen of India first, and then anything else. And at this stage, let me point out that we very often forget the fundamental duties of citizens, which are an integral part of the Constitution. How many people know that there is a part in the Constitution
Which is called fundamental duties.
which is, and how many of us know what is the first fundamental duty of every citizen? The
So
Constitution
that's why
say-
we are doing this program, because we want to spread constitutional literacy. People are not very much aware of what the Constitution says. They may have heard of it.
I very much congratulate Doordarshan for organizing this program and such other programs for educating the people about the Constitution, because in all humility I have believed that there is tremendous constitutional illiteracy even among the educated
Literate
in
people.
our
Yes.
in our country.
One thing I think,
And-
another,
And what is necessary as a positive concrete step is to make it a compulsory part of the school, college and professional institute
yes,
curricula.
because we are running short of time. So one thing that I would like
want
to
The
say-
first fundamental, the very first fundamental duty is to abide by the Constitution and respect its institutions and ideals. How
we
many
shall, we shall,
people
we shall be
even
doing,
know that?
I think we shall be doing one exclusive program at least on fundamental duty.
Yeah.
But one thing I think, because our Constitution does not give rights only to citizens, so far as Article 14, right to equality and equal protection before law, and right Article 21,
21.
right to life and personal liberty, these are given even to non-citizens. Right to freedom of expression under Article 19, this is given to citizens.
Yeah.
So this constitution also takes care of other people. I think that is something quite remarkable. Justice P.P. Singh in
It
short.
imbibes the principle of what we today call human rights. We have not distinguished in those fields between an Indian and a non-Indian, a citizen and non-citizen. The rights which belong to an ordinary human being to live a dignified life is guaranteed.
That's why when Kasab was given a fair trial.
Whoever, he may be the most atrocious person on earth, but he is also governed by the law.
Dr. Surya Prakash.
That large idea is embedded in the Constitution, and I must say that the Supreme Court has really reinforced that over the years. But one or two things in regard to what Dr. Kashyap was saying, fundamental duties. You know, the Vice President the other day said on 26th of November that we have to introduce this in the curriculum. I think that is very important, and the government, the Prime Minister Mr. Modi and the government have taken a lot of initiatives now to spread the message about fundamental duties. I think this is the right time in the country for us to do that.
Yes.
But one point I want to make in regard to the whole idea at the time of independence and subsequently what has happened, because Dr. Ambedkar said that it's very important to cultivate constitutional morality. Because at that point of time, there was not enough understanding of what this document was and what it would do and so on.
The Supreme Court has talked about constitutional morality in so many cases recently.
Yes. The other thing is, he said, even though he produced a fantastic constitution, he was also very skeptical. That is, as of 1949. Democracy in India is only a top dressing on the Indian soil, which is essentially undemocratic. Okay? From that point, if Dr. Ambedkar were to see India today, I would think he would have a more positive thing, because one, the judiciary, the legislature, the whole dynamics, and the fundamental rights and directive principles, and how the judiciary is looking at directive principles, though they are not justiciable and so on. The march towards social justice is very strong in our constitution. And I think Dr. Ambedkar would be, maybe he would be unhappy with the pace, but in terms of direction of this nation, I think he would be very proud if he were to see. He said that we have achieved political democracy, but we must also achieve social democracy, because unless we achieve that social democracy, this political democracy will be meaningless. So he was trying to caution the whole nation that... No, what I am saying is, if you see the march over the last 70 years...
And he also said that now there is no
irrespective of who ran the government, the direction is what the Constitution said.
That's why he said that there should not be any civil disobedience now, because we have a constitution. You can achieve everything through constitutional means. Now we shall have to conclude this discussion. So Justice B.P. Singh, Mr. Kashyap and Dr. Surya Prakash, thank you so much for participating in this discussion, and we can only conclude that we must be abreast with what the Constitution says, and as Mr. Kashyap has said, that there is tremendous illiteracy about Constitution. So we are trying to spread this literacy. We must know what are our duties and what does the Constitution provide, because it is such a unique document that has really survived and is sure to survive more, because when India became independent, other countries also became independent simultaneously. They lost their freedom and constitution in a few years or decades, but India has survived, and that is the strength of the Constitution. Thank you so much for watching this discussion. Namaskar.